Fantastic. Hello again. I'm here to present Inveresk Library for Interior Architecture. So I'll skip over some of the intro here. So obviously there's an opportunity here to refer to the history of the industrial heritage fabric of Inveresk, but also we look to the surrounding Tamar River and natural landscape for many of the interior elements. And also what it meant as a wayfinding device for this as a front door and located at the heart of the campus. So with its external industrial character well set within its context of sort of the grey tones of the aluminium cladding, these were offset by the red ochre tones at the ground plane of steel plate and sort of painted FC sheet, and these help define the entries. And the idea here was to really draw from the external character here at ground floor right through into the interior and reinforce that expansion of the ground plane. And these were then threaded up through what is really a richly warm and engaging interior, and also to help support this gradient of activity across the three levels. So arrival here at one of the main entries, there's a cafe on the right, a large window to the left, so you enter in between these two, and the warmth of the brick spilling out. So this urban character of the ground floor can shift and is the most flexible of all the floors. So the idea here that like an open orientation day, all the furniture can roll away and they can actually host events down on this level. But on a day-to-day basis, these squares, these kind of territories are actually created with quite specifically shaped furniture and settings that are defined by these large commissioned rugs, which I'll talk to in a second. And that warmth of the palette of materials flows into the cafe space, and this really promotes that kind of welcoming, engaging edge for the students in the community. So we're quite interested in this balancing the raw industrial character with the more refined finishes. So looking at a pretty kind of raw structure and exposed surfaces through some of the ceilings, and then that's counterpointed with some of the more rough sawn timber and softer furnishings. So we have these large furniture settings offset by these large rugs, and these were commissioned by a local indigenous artist. So Caleb from Burnie, he won the commission to design a suite of carpets right throughout the building that speak to the local environment. And this one from the natural ochres of the Tamar River, the power of water in terms of referring to the local landscape, the wetlands sustaining life and native wildlife, and also paying homage to saltwater country. And this last one was located in the rare liner collection space. So that large ceremonial stair continues this wayfinding device of that red ochre colour that moves right up through the building. So it's like a red ribbon of these large single welded sheets of steel plate with a timber handrail and timber treads. And again, marvelling at the quality of craftsmanship to the local trades, extraordinary detailing, that kind of offsetting of the refined steel plate against the timber is beautifully done. So this stair occupies a void between level 1 and 2, and there's a large hanging sculpture that's been commissioned by a local indigenous artist, and that's soon to be installed above some of these open study spaces there on the left. So this mid-level is the more diverse student community mode. So as mentioned before, there's a lot of consultation spaces. So in the middle there, meeting rooms, large flexible space for community events and like a makerspace, and also the exhibition of indigenous craft. So the Railyard collection is located up in the top right-hand corner there. And also some of the bookshelves are actually on wheels. So the idea that the collection can shift and grow and move around. Just a mix of these types of student spaces for one-on-one teacher to student consultation or group engagement. The Railyard collection, this was intentfully brought into the student or into the library building rather than being a separate building. And this provides opportunity for the collection to be accessible for all. And we work directly with Railyard and two local aunties on the consultation of this space. So it is mostly books in this collection. And then the collection upstairs, this is more quiet learning and also object-based learning. So there's many display cases with objects in them. and also digital devices that students and the community can engage with. And the idea that these bookshelves are orientated on this direction to actually navigate what is quite unusual footprint of the site. As mentioned before, the material palette, trying to reinforce this sense of homely and calming for users, quite a diverse student group, and also just that sense of trying to connect with the local landscape, but also embedded within this industrial context. It's interesting that the unusual formation of these ceilings from the orientation of the sawtooth created quite a variance in settings on this upper level for different modes. And there's one of Caleb's rugs defining a breakout space. And then other settings that are located within some of the larger windows that look out and connect back to the broader precinct. Thank you.
James, it's Wardle here. You noted the craftsmanship, and I'm looking at the building and the beautiful interiors, and I really wanted to know, how did you tap into the craftsmen people, and what was the mechanism, and how did you find them, and did you encounter any obstacles sort of working with that level of craftsmanship?
There was definitely from the very beginning and the outset a big push to have everything as locally sourced and made as possible, and that we did our best with that. Voss, who were the builder, were fantastic with that aspiration, so all of the timber linings were all sourced. The Tas oak, they're all perforated locally, and Voss really helped with this initiative bring on, with their knowledge, the skilled trades that could pull this off. And I think everyone knew contributing to this building, given its kind of significance with so many local trades, that a really significant effort was put into it. So I think really it was probably down to what Voss as the head contractor brought to it, I'd say.
James, can I just ask you a question about, I'm interested in this kind of ready for anything quality to the plan, because it's a very distinct building type. It has a long tradition. I'm trying to understand what about that work, given there seems to be a lot that it has to do. It also possibly has to do everything. So I need to get behind this question of the purposefulness of the idea at play. And the references to the industrial context are one thing, but that doesn't say anything about what the integrity of the logic, of the spatial logic of the scheme is offering to the university as a campus.
Well, I think one way of configuring it was obviously across the different levels. So as a kind of demarcation of the different types of uses that the building wanted to perform, and by obviously locating the more active at the ground plane, it was a function of the brief did evolve as the building was designed through a significant amount of consultation with the university. So it in a way, it did come out of the opportunities that the building envelope could provide, rather than simply starting with a very established brief. So it was quite an organic process. And since, the way in which the building has currently been performing is kind of ongoing. They will continue, I mean, similar to an industrial building, it will continue to evolve and shift. So it is, it gives them that level of ability to kind of shift the different modes and the way this building's used. So it is quite unusual in the way it was approached and the way it is being currently used.
James, Nikki here, but in terms of the plan is largely rectilinear, but you've used the interior sort of finessing to make sort of sculptural gestures, like in the finer detailing. Was that sort of more possible because the brief was a bit looser and the spaces need to be quite flat, sort of adaptable for different? So you've got students, staff, and the public allowed to access this building at any time. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. It did come out of through the consultation. If this was a building full of lots of little rooms, it would have been quite challenging. And I think it provided the opportunity to actually explore much more open settings through quite specific joinery elements. So through that middle zone there, you can actually create senses of or areas of enclosure through what is quite an open plan. And that did come out of the process, that the kind of suitability of the footprint provided a more open.
Thank you, James. We will need to stop there.